Team Fortress 2, or TF2 as it's more commonly referred to by those who actually play it. This game is a many things to many people, from a source of memes, community, and fun, to some sort of ancient precursor to modern live service games mentioned in passing when looking at gaming history, and much more. But I suspect most of you already know this, and you're actually just looking for some help getting into things. After all, while this game is free to play, it's over 10 years old, and the tutorial is inadequate, to put it nicely. And as someone with over 1,000 hours in this game, I think I can help yinz out with the basic stuff at the very least. How yinz doing? I'm an Ian, and this is the new player's guide to Team Fortress 2. Let's get into it.
If fighting is sure to result in victory, then you must fight. Sun Tzu said that, and I'd say he knows a little more about fighting than you do, pal, because he invented it. And then he perfected it so that no living man could best him in the Ring of Honor.
First things first, the default settings in this game are utter crap, and pretty much anyone who knows how to change them changes them. So if you're used to games like Nintendo consoles where you don't need to adjust the settings and are generally incapable whatsoever, this might be a bit of a culture shock to you. The first changes we'll want to enable will be to make sure that fast weapon switching and developer console are enabled through the advanced settings menu. Fast weapon switching is pretty easy to understand. It lets you swap between your weapons faster than you would be able to otherwise. The developer console, however, is where things get a little more complicated. Ostensibly, this allows you to access console commands similar to when you were playing Skyrim on PC. You even hit the exact same key in order to access this menu. So if you ever wanted to turn off view models or just make them smaller, this is where you go about doing that. But based on what I was like when I first started playing this game, I would be willing to bet that most of you who are looking at this video for genuine advice are unlikely to actually bother doing that and find the idea of using console commands a bit too daunting. Just remember, if you ever find your guns taking up too much screen space and preventing you from seeing what's going on around you, this is where you go about changing that. Moving on to regular settings, you'll want to make sure you have automatic reloading enabled. If you're used to more conventional first-person shooters, this might seem like something you don't want to have enabled at all times, but trust me, in this game, you do. It's pretty easy to have your reload animation get cancelled in-game by other people, so it's best just to not have to need to think about reloading altogether if possible. And while you're here, I recommend looking over the other settings in this menu just to see what you like. However, there are 3 settings I highly recommend making sure you have enabled. The first one is enabling damage numbers to appear on screen when you hit someone. This will let you know how much damage you're doing whenever you do hurt someone in-game, which allows you to learn how much health people have and when you should and shouldn't engage into fights. I also recommend enabling sound effects to apply whenever you hit or kill someone. This is because not only are they satisfying, but they allow you to know when you actually did something when you don't have line of sight on your opponents, such as when you're shooting grenades around a corner. The last thing I recommend making sure you have enabled is making it so the medic's minigun is set to heal without holding down a fire button. This is just an excellent quality of life improvement that makes the game far less intensive on your fingers and mouse. With the settings covered, one last thing I feel like I must mention before we cover the game proper. Due to our previous bot crisis where people were flooding the game with bot accounts, free-to-play accounts had their abilities to communicate in-game gutted. Officially, this was simply a temporary stopgap measure, but it's been years, so it's safe to assume that this duct tape solution is now just a permanent fixture we have to deal with. There have only ever been 3 ways to get your account upgraded to premium. The first was to buy this game before it went free to play on the orange box, but obviously that's no longer an option for any of us. There's also an in-game item that can upgrade your account for free, but this requires someone else to give it to you after buying it with real-world money. And since both your inventory space and the items you're allowed to trade in the first place are heavily restricted when you have a free-to-play account, it's doubtful you'll be able to get an in-game trader to actually give you this item whatsoever. This means if you want your account to go premium, you'll have to spend real-world money on the in-game store. Please bear in mind I said the in-game store, not the Steam Community Marketplace. Although I do recommend the Community Marketplace in the majority of situations, since, to be quite frank, that place has better stuff at lower prices than the in-game store whatsoever. No, seriously, do not buy weapons from the in-game store whatsoever. Just buy a war paint from the Community Marketplace. It will be significantly cheaper by a wide margin. Hell, if you don't want to spend money on weapons in this game whatsoever, you don't have to. This game has a random drop system, so as long as you're logged into the game and playing consistently, you'll find pretty much every weapon in the game that isn't a cosmetic reskin with enough playtime under your belt. Remember when I told you guys I had over 1,000 hours in this game? Well, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with yinz. A solid third of that gameplay time was just me AFK on an idle server while watching TV with my family. But I know what a lot of you are thinking now. If the in-game store is a complete scam when compared to the community marketplace or third-party trade sites, what should I buy from here to get a premium account without wasting my money? The short answer is a key. The keys in this game are used to open the in-game loot boxes known as crates and cases. And while they can be used to effectively play the lottery for a chance at a super rare unusual effect item, in all honesty, the real reason you're grabbing this thing is because it's used as a currency with players who actually like to trade in-game items. You see, TF2 has a vibrant trade economy with its cosmetics, so realistically if you buy a key you can easily get some nice cosmetic items or weapons or really whatever the hell you want for the most part, and be able to get some good gear. But if you want to spend as little money as humanly possible on this game, I recommend getting a stamp instead. Stamps are a way for the community to help support its map creators by giving a portion of your money directly to them. These stamps only cost $1 each, and if you end up buying even a single one of these, you'll also be given a hat alongside them. This hat even has a special particle effect applied to you whenever you're on a map that you own the stamp for. With that said, let's move into the game proper. When you're first getting into it, if you just want to start playing the game right away, what you'll want to do is select Find a Game and then select Casual. From here, you'll find a menu showing off the different game modes where you can select or deselect what you want to play. I would also like to mention that there is a View Maps tab underneath each game mode, so if you love a specific game mode but hate a map that involves that game mode, such as how I hate the Brazil map in King of the Hill but love playing King of the Hill, you can simply go to this tab and deselect Brazil specifically, so that you don't have to play that godforsaken map again. But if you're new and just starting out, I recommend just having all the maps enabled and then deselect them later once you find out what you do and don't like. I will now go over the main game modes so that you know what you're getting yourself in for. Attack Defend. This game mode's rather straightforward to understand. There's a series of control points and the attacking team is trying to take them from the defending team. There should be a timer at the top center of your screen showing how much time the attacking team has before the defending team wins. Just keep in mind that whenever the attacking team manages to capture a control point, time is added to this counter. And if the attacking team is capturing a control point when the timer hits 0, the game will go into overtime until either the defending team can successfully repel their attempt to capture the control point, or the attackers are able to successfully capture said control point and have time added to the timer. Capture the flag. Each team has a briefcase full of secret info that you need to steal from them and bring to the room where you keep your own. Should the person carrying the intelligence ever drop the intelligence, whether this is due to their death or of their own volition, a timer will appear above the briefcase and, should it run out of time, be teleported back to the intel room of their respective team. Combine this with the fact that you can pretty much be guaranteed that there'll be a bunch of engineers building stuff in the intel room so that you'll have to deal with several sentries in order to even touch the intelligence, and you can quickly realize that this game mode is going to end up being a giant stall fest with no clear end in sight. This makes Capture the Flag very popular among players who don't play the game very seriously and just want to run around and shoot people with no actual care towards playing the objective whatsoever. Control points. Often called 5CP in the community, this game mode is something of a tug-of-war version of Attack Defend, where both teams are attacking and defending at the same time, trying to control the same 5 control points. If you enjoy a game mode where you're constantly fighting on different fronts in order to secure your victory with your team, this is a great game mode for you. King of the Hill, or Koth for short, a personal favorite game mode of mine where there's a single control point at the center of a small, intimate map and both teams fight to control it. Payload. One team pushes a bomb down a track to blow up the other team's base while the opposing team tries to stop them. It's similar to Attack Defend in the sense that the defending team simply needs to defend until a timer runs out, and there's several checkpoints along the way that, if you can capture with the payload, will allow time to be added to this timer. If you're on the attacking team, please keep in mind that the payload does count as a level 1 dispenser in terms of giving you health and ammo. This means if you're using certain weapons, such as the minigun or flamethrower, you can fire indefinitely so long as you're standing on top of the cart. Just keep in mind that if you decide to do this, that the cart will heal you, but that doesn't make you invincible to damage. You can still be killed by stuff like sniper headshots. Or concentrated fire of any kind, to be perfectly honest. The healing is not that strong. Once you've selected for what game modes you want to queue up for, and have actually gotten into a game, you'll need to decide what class you're going to play. If for any reason you decide that you want to change what class you're playing, it can be done through the comma key. Just keep in mind that if you try changing classes while outside of spawn, you will be killed and sent back there. First and foremost, Team Fortress 2 is a casual 12v12 experience by default. and there is no penalty for leaving a game midway through a match. So if you decide that your team sucks and you should just leave and do something else with your life, you can easily just leave this game and then join a new one entirely with no penalty to you whatsoever. This means things like team composition, party layouts, and so forth are more vague suggestions than actual rules that you can be kicked from the server for not following. Hell, it's something of a meme in the community of having a team consisting entirely of spies and snipers unable to get out of spawn. Another thing to keep in mind is that damage fall-off is a thing and headshots are not. This means the further away you are from someone, the less damage you're going to be doing to them unless you're using a sniper rifle. And unless you're using a sniper rifle or have a weapon that otherwise specifies in its description, headshots are not a thing. This means, counter to what you probably learned from other first-person shooters, aiming for the head is no longer the most optimal play for most classes. Instead, you'll want to aim for their center of mass. And while you can crouch in this game, it does not affect accuracy in any capacity. In fact, there's only two reasons people actually use the crouch key whatsoever in this game. The first is to simply crouch behind stuff in order to avoid getting headshot. This will most commonly be seen on payload maps where people will hide behind the payload cart in order to avoid getting shot at by the enemy team. The only other reason you'll want to hit the control key whatsoever in this game is the crouch jump, where if you crouch and then jump in rapid succession with each other in that order, you can actually do what is called a crouch jump and get some increased mobility with your jumps, allowing you to reach places in the map that would otherwise be impossible for certain classes. One last bit of general advice to this game is that friendly fire is not a thing whatsoever. This means if you see someone on the enemy team engaging in melee combat with one of your own teammates, you can fire explosives at them with reckless abandon and know full damn well that you're not going to hurt your teammates whatsoever. There is only one exception to friendly fire in this entire game, and that is engineer sentries, which can kill the engineer who built them. As for the 9 classes you can play, I will briefly go over each of them and their base abilities that you'll have straight out of the box. All the classes have several unlockable weapons that can radically change their playstyle, but I'm just going to cover what you'll have when you first install this game, since this is a guide for new players, not people who have already covered the 101 basics. Although I may briefly mention some unlockable weapons if they are extremely popular and de facto meta within the community. We will start with the Scout. The Scout boasts the highest movement speed in the entire game, as well as a double jump that you can do mid-air, which can allow you some great mobility, or as an easy way to avoid fall damage if you so desire. The Scout also counts as 2 people in regards to capturing objectives. These facets combined result in many a Scout player sneaking behind the enemy team in order to capture the objective from behind them. This is often referred to in the community as backcapping. The key downside to all of this is the fact that the Scout has one of the smallest health pools in the entire game. As for your default weapons, the Scout boasts a scattergun as his primary, which functions similar to a sawed-off shotgun in other FPS games. Great damage up close, but borderline useless at a distance. The default secondary weapon for the Scout is a pistol. The pistol is a solid secondary weapon to use for whenever someone's outside of range of your primary weapon, and your default melee weapon is an aluminum baseball bat. While the Scout's melee attacks are actually doing less damage per hit compared to other classes, you actually have a higher swing speed with your melee weapon, so your DPS overall is unchanged. The Scout is a great character for those of you who enjoy playing a high mobility character and have good confidence in their aim. Up next we have Soldier. The Soldier class is easily the most popular character to play in this entire game, boasting an above average HP pool of 200, as well as some of the best mobility in the game through the power of their primary weapon, the rocket launcher. For you see, while the Soldier has some of the lowest movement speed in the entire game in regards to how well WASD gets you across the ground, in regards to your other options of mobility, the Soldier reigns supreme. This is because when you shoot a rocket at your feet, you can actually launch yourself into the air. Not only does this allow you to get to the second floor of a building without needing to use stairs, but there are several areas on certain maps where you can get the high ground by sacrificing your own HP to rocket jump to an otherwise inaccessible section of the map. Not only that, but some of the most skilled players in this game can easily use this rocket launcher to get to the front lines faster than even the most competent Scout. In fact, the power of rocket jumping is so versatile in this game that many players opt to get rid of their secondary weapon, the shotgun, in favor of the gun boots, a pair of shoes in this game that reduce the damage you take from your own rockets. But we will focus on the shotgun since that's what you're going to have when you first boot up this game. The shotgun is a solid secondary weapon that boasts inferior damage to the Scout's scattergun, but is still a reliable weapon to use in the majority of situations. If you're fighting someone where your rockets are useless, such as in close quarters where you'd blow yourself up with your own rockets, or against a scout who is able to dodge them reliably, pull your secondary shotgun out in order to deal with those kinds of threats. As for your melee weapon, it's a shovel. It's nothing special. Pull this thing out if you somehow ran out of ammo without getting yourself killed. Pick the soldier if you're not sure what you want to do this game. Third on the list is Pyro. As you probably surmise from the name alone, your primary weapon is a flamethrower. However, this flamethrower has a unique ability, the air blast. With a simple right-click or alt-fire of your primary weapon, you can create a puff of air at the cost of some of your ammo in order to reflect pretty much anything that isn't a bullet, a part of the map, or an engineer building. Although the timing on this can be a bit tricky to learn. This means if a soldier starts shooting recklessly with their rocket launcher at you, you can kill them with their own rockets, hypothetically. However, I suspect the majority of kills you get through this ability will be by pushing people off a cliff. Also keep in mind that your air blast can extinguish your teammates, so if an enemy pyro set your team on fire with their own flamethrower, you can put out the flames and save your team by a simple right click. As for your secondary weapon, it's the same shotgun the soldier was wielding earlier. Use this thing whenever your flamethrower isn't a viable option, such as when you're dealing with enemy pyros who are immune to afterburn, or when you're fighting opponents who are underwater or outside of your flamethrower's range. As for your default melee weapon, it is a fire axe, but considering the fact that enemies drop medium ammo packs upon their death, and the fact that your default weapons put you up close and personal with your opposition, I will be genuinely impressed if you can somehow run out of ammo before you get yourself killed with this character. Pick Pyro if you have no confidence in your ability to aim or just prefer fighting up close and personal with opponents. Up next we have the Demo Man, the Black Scottish Cyclops himself. This character boasts a grenade launcher as his default primary weapon, as well as a sticky bomb launcher as his secondary. The grenade launcher should be pretty self-explanatory to understand and not need a lot of alliteration. If you're curious about why you only have 4 shots in your grenade launcher's clip before you need to reload, but the model clearly shows that you have room for 6, the short answer is your default melee weapon is a bottle of alcohol. What do you expect from this guy? As for your secondary sticky bomb launcher, it's pretty easy to understand. You fire some sticky bombs and then you right-click, similar to the Pyro's air blast, to detonate them all at once. Please note that you don't actually need the sticky bomb launcher to be pulled out and deployed in order to actually detonate the sticky bombs whatsoever. You can actually set these sticky bombs wherever you want as a trap and then detonate them later when you have other weapons pulled out fighting someone else. It's actually a pretty common tactic to cover control points with your sticky bombs and then detonate the moment you get a notification that someone's capturing the objective. Please also know that if you're standing on top of your sticky bombs, you can also launch yourself through the air similar to the soldier's rocket jumping. Just bear in mind that you'll be taking significantly more damage from your sticky bombs than the soldier does from his rockets. In fact, these sticky bombs do so much damage that if you try to jump with more than 2 underneath your feet, you're probably going to get yourself killed. If you want to play with explosives all day, Demo Man is the best character for you. Halfway there now with the Heavy Weapons guy. Boasting 300 HP, this guy has the most health out of any of the playable mercenaries in this game by default. The downside to this is that you have the lowest movement speed in the game as well. Your primary weapon by default is a minigun, and this can't really be changed because all of your unlockable alternatives to this are just different kinds of miniguns. Your default secondary weapon is a shotgun, but to be perfectly honest, you're probably never going to use this over your minigun. In fact, pretty much every heavy player in this game swaps out their shotgun for a sandwich the first chance they get so that they can heal themselves instead. As for your melee weapon, it is by default your bare fists. Use this if you somehow ran out of ammo. Pick the Heavy Weapons guy if revving up a minigun sounds like a fun time to you. Next on the list is my most played class, the Engineer. Use your wrench to build stuff to help your team out. The most well-known of these buildings is unquestionably the sentries you can build to shoot down the enemy team as they get into your no-go zone. But the most useful buildings you can create are actually the dispensers and teleporters that you can get up and running. The dispensers create infinite health and ammo for your team, whilst your teleporters get them back up to the front lines faster. And should you need to defend yourself whatsoever because you haven't been able to build all your stuff up yet, your primary weapon is the same shotgun that the Pyro and Soldier use as their secondary. And the actual secondary weapon the Engineer has is a pistol. The same pistol the Scout uses, actually, but your ammo pool is much larger. Your clip size doesn't change, so you have to reload as often, but you will pretty much never need to stock up on ammo for this thing whatsoever. No joke, the only time I have ever seen an Engineer player run out of ammo for their pistol was when I decided to personally sit in a corner at spawn and just shoot away and see how long it would take. This was back in 2016, and I genuinely don't remember what the results were, so if anyone wants to waste their time figuring this out, feel free to comment down below. But as for the engineer himself, pick him if you want to help your team out but don't want to be the heal bitch. But the next character on the list is actually the heal bitch himself, the medic. Yeah, there's no two ways around it, the medic is the character you play as when you want to be the healer. This is partly because his secondary weapons, the bone saw and syringe gun, are some of the worst default weapons in the entire game. Seriously, only use these things when you absolutely have to and not a second sooner. What you'll want to be doing with this character is using your medigun to help your team stay alive for as long as possible. This is because not only does your medigun heal your teammates as the name implies, but it can also increase their maximum HP temporarily, making them far more durable while you're healing them than they otherwise should be. And if you're able to heal your team for long enough without getting killed yourself, your medigun can be charged up and deploy an uber charge. The uber charge gives you and whoever you're healing a few seconds of complete invulnerability, making you immune to any and all damage you may receive. Just keep in mind that any uber charge you built up is actually lost upon your death as medic. This means you'll want to use your uber charge to escape a certain death scenario rather than try to hold on to it for your teammates. And please keep in mind this is a game where players are just as likely to play rock, paper, scissors in the corner or create a conga line as they are to actually be playing the game competitively, so don't feel like you have to play the healer when you log into a game. Hell, in my experience, most games don't even have anyone playing medic in the first place. Second to last of the playable characters you can select in this game is the sniper. With a glorified pea shooter mislabeled as an SMG as your secondary weapon and an Australian butter knife as your melee weapon, you should quickly realize that the sniper only truly excels at his namesake, sniping. If you want to click on people's heads from across the map and watch them die, this is the character for you. Just keep in mind a few things about your sniper rifle. First and foremost, you can only headshot people while scoped in, and secondly, please keep in mind that your headshots have something of a charge mechanic to them. This means if you try to scope in and immediately headshot people instantly, you're only going to be doing 150 damage, which some of the classes can survive. This means in practice you're going to want to zoom in with your sniper rifle long before you want to be taking your shot, ideally. Pick sniper if you want to click on heads and don't give a shit about your team. And last but certainly not least, we have the spy. With an invisibility watch, the ability to disguise yourself as the enemies on the other team, as well as sappers that can destroy engineers' buildings, you can quickly realize why this character is so popular. You also start with a butterfly knife that can instantly kill people if you stab at them from behind. And don't forget about the revolver you start with as well. It's not as powerful as the instant kill backstab your knife can do, but it's far more reliable and quite useful for situations where that's not an option. Pick the spy if you want to mess with the other team. Just bear in mind that he has the highest skill floor out of all the classes this game has on offer. But that should be everything you need to know to get started with this game at the very least. There's a lot of other things I wish I could have covered here, but to be perfectly honest, I know full damn well none of you would have clicked on this video if you saw it was over an hour long, so I tried to keep it as short and sweet as possible without cutting anything I deemed important. Be sure to comment what you thought down below, as well as liking this video. After all, we're at the end of the video, and if you didn't like this video, why are you still here? No, seriously. This video is over 20 minutes long now, and you just wasted that finite time you have on this earth watching something you are neither required nor forced to watch. Why are you here? With that said, I've been Ian, you have been you, and this has been a TF2 New Player's Guide. Thank you all for watching.